Hey, hi, hello friends, and welcome back to Em Reads Books. I'm Em, and I read books. Today we are going to be talking about my November wrap-up, which is basically every single book that I read in November that I liked. I read 23 books this November, so I'm going to be just taking the 4 and 5 star reviews here. But I'm also going to exclude the NetGalley arcs that I read, and I'm going to put those in a separate video. Partially because almost all of those were 4 and 5 star reviews, but also because, I feel like it's a lot more accessible if you can go out and read this book right now, The first book that I read and loved was Beach Read by Emily Henry. And so this is about two writers who sort of are falling in love after the death of her father and his sort of divorce. And it's written in a way that I personally enjoy when it comes to a romance, in the sense of it's not all about all of the sort of, sex. But it's a lot more about their relationship as they sort of grow to love each other. This is definitely sort of that enemies to friends or enemies to lovers trope that people love. And I felt like it was really well done here, just because we're in the main character's head for basically all of it. So we have sort of one interpretation. And it's nice to sort of find out when that character is wrong. When you're seeing it, you're like, no, he loves you! The next book that I read and loved was A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. So there's a lot of controversy around this book, and I did do some research sort of into reviews by other people, mainly because, as a white female, I'm sort of not affected by the things that people are saying that are that are the things that people are saying that are racist stereotypes. And so the sort of conclusion that I have come to is that, she makes a comment about locks in it that was just completely unnecessary and really offensive, honestly. But aside from that, I didn't personally find the sort of like treatment of characters in ways that very few people are taking it. And so this is a story. It follows Elle, who basically is enrolled at this school for magic that is, it's deadly in the title. Like, tons of people die, except that there's this guy named Orion who keeps saving everybody. And more appropriately, he's saving people who, without their consent. So, it's not that they don't want to be saved, but come on. And she hates him. She hates him so much. And so we get to sort of follow her journey, because she's trying so hard not to be a dark wizard and trying so hard sort of not to fall in love with Orion, but that she's going to. And I just sort of found the world in this really compelling, just sort of with the groups of wizards outside of this school and how sort of economic it was in sort of who gets a bid from each collective of wizards. And I'm interested to see where this goes in the future. I liked that it was short. I've seen that her other stories, I think Uprooted and Spinning Silver, look very long in comparison. So I was happy. The next book that I read was Thicker Than Blood by Mike Omer. And this is the third and final book in the Zoe Bentley mysteries, which can I just say, I'm so happy when an author ends a series, it's done, just because I feel like sometimes you can be tempted to just go on and on and on. And they didn't here. Here we were following an unsub with a myriad of mental illnesses, but their modus operandi was draining their victim of blood, not completely, but like they would be drinking their blood. And it was so sort of strange to be in his head because he, things weren't making sense, and, he wasn't sure of himself, but it all sort of tied together and worked out really nicely in the end. Overall, I think the first 2 books in the series were way better, but I'm just sort of happy it's over. Also this month, I read The Eighth Detective by Alex Pavesi, and this was like everything that my mystery-loving heart needed. So basically, we're following this girl who is going to, I was under the impression it was an island, to interview and sort of get this author slash mathematician's works sort of up to the point of publication. And so she's gonna go through the stories with him, and discuss what can be improved, what needs to change. And so this author, he's created a collection of short mysteries, which basically sort of all encompass the sample space for murder mysteries. So you get to sort of discuss the framework on which all murder mysteries are based, but obviously within this there's an overarching mystery, so it's like double mystery inception. And if you're a fan of sort of those classics, you will definitely enjoy this. I also listened to Eat a Peach by David Chang, and I gotta be real, I don't know why this is classified as a cookbook for the Goodreads 2020 awards. This is not a cookbook. This is a memoir where he talks about depression and bipolar disorder and sort of anger management. But it was compelling, I would say. I really enjoyed listening to it. So he narrated it himself, which was nice. And I sort of got a better understanding of what it's like to be in the restaurant industry, sort of the pressure that's constantly on you, as well as just the sacrifices that you have to make. And I think that overall, it was a really good book. Next, I read The Faceless Old Woman Who Secretly Lives in Your House by Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Craner. And honestly, I think the only reason why I'm really rating this high is just because I love Welcome to Night Vale. And people who love Welcome to Night Vale will like this book. But the problem with it is just that in the previous Welcome to Night Vale books, they actually take place in Night Vale, rather than sort of giving the history of everything involved with this, this beloved character. I understand that. But, we're going back in time to the times of, piracy and smuggling, and it just didn't make sense. But it was still pretty cool, so I don't know. The next book I read, finally, is Embrace Your Weird by Felicia Day. And so I thought that this was going to be a book sort of about anxiety, which technically it is, but it's mostly about sort of creativity and building it within yourself, and sort of taking the things that make you, that make you different, and using those for your creativity. So it has tons of little exercises in it. I was just sort of reading through, so I didn't stop and do all of them yet. But I think that it would be a great sort of companion for someone who is trying to sort of get into their creative process. Especially, I know NaNoWriMo just ended, but this would be sort of perfect for someone who's doing that. I also finally finished The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, and this was just fun. That's what I'll say. It didn't really have much of a plot. It was more just a string of vignettes about the characters on this spaceship put together while they're on this long journey to a small angry planet. But that being said, she did such a great job of characterizing all of the characters on this ship that I sincerely sort of cared for each and every one of them. The audiobook was so good because the narrator did voices for each character. And so if you are a fan of sci-fi, or you're trying to sort of maybe get someone into it, I think this is a great sort of starter book just because it feels like you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, but on a spaceship. The next book that I read and loved this month, and this honestly might be my favorite book of this month, was Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. So, what we're doing here is we're taking a fantasy. We are, mixing in some Arthurian stuff, and then adding in a bunch of representation, both of different races and different sort of like gender identities and sexualities, and then smashing it all together and just like sort of sitting back and looking at it. Because, so, we're following Bree, who is a black teenager who is going to a school in North Carolina for sort of like an early college program. And when she gets there, she's still processing the grief of her mother's death when she ends up sort of knee-deep in this secret society that is based in the legends of King Arthur, and sort of in this other realm, there are creatures that are passing through the veil into sort of our human world. And so Bree is trying to figure out what happened to her mom, and she thinks it's connected to this, but at the same time, she is a black woman in the South, and she's dealing with all sorts of overt and systemic racism that come with that. And then we get to sort of tie in this beautiful magic system that's actually based on real sort of African magic that's called Root, that she begins to sort of practice. And it's just, I don't think I spoiled anything, I'm sorry if I did, but it's so good! Like, this is the first book, and my guess is that there will be 3, maybe 5, and I'm here for it. I'm going to read all of them. The last book that I read in November was The Cipher by Isabella Maldonado, and this book follows Nina Guerrera, a FBI agent who, when she was younger, escaped from a kidnapping, and she basically is filmed beating up someone who tried to assault her in the park. The video goes viral. They start calling her Warrior Girl. And the kidnapper that she escaped from sees the video and begins sort of taunting her and creating a sort of puzzle serial killer mystery for her and the BAU at the FBI to solve. And this book was particularly good, sort of when compared to all of the standard, FBI procedural thrillers, because the author here actually had been an FBI agent, which I think is just so cool. You don't get that. And so one thing that she wrote about in particular was like the obstacle course that they call the Yellow Brick Road, which I think maybe I've seen on Criminal Minds or something similar to that, but her perspective on it was so fresh and realistic that I really enjoyed it. So that was my wrap up for November. If you read any of these books, let me know down below what you thought of them. Also, just sort of let me know what you've been reading this month. I'm so interested in hearing about what other people are reading and adding to my TBR, which is, it's only 60, and as always, keep reading. And now I need a thumbnail really quick. I read this one, which I own, and I want
to be the thumbnail.
No, Siri doesn't want to be in the thumbnail.
Without moving.
Alright, I got some options in there. Stop recording.